I can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend.
You know you left me lonely, I could tell them the whole story. It may take a couple hours, I've got time, let's get to chat. How could I explain the situation? Man, it's so damn complicated. Where do I start, where do I end? I should go back to bed. I'm going back to all the basics, teaching myself now how to erase it. It's like learning a whole new language, and I'm afraid, too scared to face it. I just want consistent clarity, but all my thoughts destroying me. Some peace of mind is all I need to give peace to all of my family. I can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend. You think you are everything I need, but I gotta leave. Try but can't get through to me. It's not you, yeah, it's always me. I close my heart to you, you see it opens up for nobody. It's been so hard to fall asleep. The weather always makes my nose bleed, makes my nose bleed. It's so hard to believe that one day I'll feel peace. I want control over my life, I want that driver's seat. Yeah, it's not you that I need. You push me down when I'm weak. You were never there for me. Go pick up your keys and leave. I can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend. You think you're everything I need, but I gotta leave. Can't go back to you, my friend. Don't even ask, don't play pretend. Cause you think you are everything I need, but I gotta leave. to be myself. Don't talk to nobody else. I want to be someone special. I don't want to be a typical person. To get away from my devil, start from fresh with a fundamental. I feel it, I feel it right. I feel it right. I feel it right. I feel it right. I'm learning how to be a better version of you. And now I realize I'm talking to myself. Doesn't really need to be forever. Doesn't make you feel better. I feel it, I feel it right. I feel it right. I feel it, I feel it right. I feel it right. Wanna feel it. Wanna feel it. Wanna feel it. I feel it. I feel it right. Wanna feel it. Wanna feel it. Wanna feel it. Wanna feel it. I wish a void opened in the air to suck me up, 'cause I really don't care. While I'm falling, I wondered if you would miss me when I'm gone. While I'm falling, I wondered if you would miss me when I am gone. I feel so hollow inside, hollow inside. I've been in and out my mind since I hit your phone. I've been counting up the times that I did you wrong. I just want you by my side when I get real gone. Feel it's been a little while since we got along, yeah. We've been playing stupid games, the situation rotates. And they say communication, safe relations, okay. Medicated how I'm patient, wasting time ain't the way. Cause I can see it on your face. I've been tossing, turning, staying up all night long. I've been calling, yearning, wondering what I did wrong. I could tell by your eyes you got something to hide. So open your mind up, let me inside, and let's make it right. Tell me, baby, what's the problem? Cause I keep trying to figure it out. Oh no, oh no. Tell me, baby, what's the problem? I'm only picking up what you're putting down. You'll be tripping, I don't know what about. So what's the problem right now? Okay, now hold up. Let me get something right off my chest. I've been meaning to read into it, time to put it to rest. Is it stress? Is it that I ain't answer your text? Don't you treat it like amnesia, you know I always forget. Stirring the pot real hot, watch how the plot thickens. Around the clock, tick tock, need more than 20 seconds to get your attention
Alright, what? What happens? Are we live?
I think we are.
Alright, well, welcome back to Blitz. I'm Alios. This is week 2. I'm joined by Goose. Fitting that this is the first main season cast I get after like 3 are canceled. So
Yeah.
Goose is gonna take us through the divisions and kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so if it is a little bit confusing, don't worry. There are 4 divisions, 2 conferences. Division 1 and 2 are in Conference 1, and then you have Division 3 and 4 that are in Conference 2. I don't know why we're not getting a... There we go. Yep, so today's teams will be Lycus Empire and FloatTech. FloatTech will be from Division 1, and then Lycus Empire will be from Conference 2 and Division 4 in a very dire situation, as the Unks are now 0-2. Even if FloatTech do somehow lose this game, which it's very unlikely, this is a probable game that's very in their favor if you lost, or not lost, but watched last week's game of Lycus. They still will not be in contention to be eliminated. If you're not sure of how the standings works, every single division, the top 2 teams go into playoffs. So simply just, if you're not the worst team, you're fine, you get to go into playoffs.
It is an interesting kind of system, especially after so many leagues just kind of did like Swiss over and over and over again. So good to get a little bit of variety. We do also have some rosters to discuss, though, those being FloatTech and Lycus Empire. So you'll see us again for a little bit. We kind of bring those up. And first of all, we're going to have Lycus Empire. Oh, I just read the words under the names. Okay. So Lycus Empire, an org that's pretty storied if you are familiar with that kind of T3, T2 scene in Rainbow Six Siege. So a team that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing, but one that I know you're a little bit more familiar with than I am, Goose.
Yeah, I am. After not only having a poor stage, but statistically with overall record and round differential being the last team in the LATAM Stage 2 of 2024, they removed 4 players aside from 1. I think it's Apex, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. But nonetheless, they have slotted in 4 new players. We will have 1 sub for map 1, so technically you have 5 new players. It's a little wonky. They are still in that reconstruction stage. They're also looking for a coach on top of that. But looking on the other side of the table, it's going to be FloatTech, a team that, in my opinion, has a lot of potential simply because you just have that core of Rai, Vipoa, Zonky, and it's kind of a system that has notoriously always just consistently worked. There isn't anything really wrong. Obviously, there is, time after time, season after season, a skill ceiling, but it is a team that you can really rely on.
Additionally, Hectic is a player that's been pretty consistent recently and has kind of been one of those players, I think, that a lot of people would peg as one of the next to be up in T2, but hasn't really gotten that opportunity yet. On with Dami, who is, I think, coming back from a bit of a break. I haven't really seen him around, but he has historically been a very, very good player. And so, like you said, that kind of consistency that Zonky, Rai and Vapoa have together, adding 2 talents on top of that could really be exactly what they need, especially with both of these players being very capable of lighting up the scoreboard and very flexible in doing so. Should be interesting to see. That being said, though, we have to determine the battleground in which this game will take place. So we're going to go over to map bans real quick and just kind of see what is up here. And so far, I mean, at least to me, nothing is really sticking out here.
Yeah, Chalet coming out isn't necessarily a little bit of a surprise, but it is a map that we have not seen Lycus Empire play. We have seen them play Clubhouse. I believe it was a 7-0, maybe a 7-2, a very decisive loss for them. And then for our final map, that being Nighthaven, again, another map that we have not seen from Lycus Empire. We've also seen Club from FloatTech, so, a very, overall just very familiar battleground for both teams. But Chalet is going to be relatively new for both of them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It is a map that, at least in my opinion, isn't super, super out there. So both of these teams should be very familiar with it, even if we haven't really seen either of them play it. So it will be a kind of interesting starting ground. Although really, I think the most interesting map in this pool is probably Nighthaven, just because Club and Chalet have been pretty default. Club especially has kind of been like a default map since the dinosaurs walked the earth. So
yeah.
all the way back in like 2017 when we had Quetzalcoatlus. So we'll kind of see how things go here. But I know you're more familiar with both of these teams than I am, Goose. So kind of what are you anticipating going into this first map?
To put it nicely, I have no expectations from Lycus. That is both a good and a bad thing. Because, again, they're in that rebuild stage, just completely reconstructing their roster, losing 4 players, or I guess you could say changing 4 players, rather, and then also losing a coach. It's kind of a situation where you're going to have situations where you're not going to be playing up to your highest ability. But last weekend, even for a pug stack, which a majority of the teams in Blitz and all of T3 are, it's just not something that I should have seen come out from Lycus. So going into this map, I do think it should be on paper a 2-0, but I do hope and believe that we will see just a lot more life from Lycus.
Let's hope that is the case. They're going to be starting on the attack here, which has historically been pretty good on this map, but has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, at least in my opinion, in recent months. And the bans, honestly, from what I'm seeing, I mean, aside from the Blitz ban, which is pretty interesting, normally you'd see like a Monty ban down instead, nothing here is really that out of the ordinary. Both Valkyrie and Dazame just make defending a living hell, especially if you have a good Dazame player on like Mezzanine, and then Ying is just not fun to deal with during an execute, so it makes sense that teams don't want to deal with her. And now, get to see how FloatTech kind of want to set this up. I want to see how they want to orchestrate the pace here going into this, is given that they are on the defense, they have a great opportunity to do that.
And already, I don't want to say a questionable choice, but FloatTech taking this top bomb site is more interesting rather than questionable. Obviously, you do still have those 2 middle floor bomb sites, that being Kitchen and Bar. That is more favorable and just overall is a lot easier to defend. But if you're FloatTech just bringing this bomb site, that isn't bad per se, especially if you're comparing it to the basement. It's kind of a situation where they're just testing the waters. They want to see what Lycus is going to be bringing, because on paper, Lycus should bring relatively nothing, but you don't want to put yourself in a bad position where you're caught off guard.
Yeah, you will kind of see teams, I guess I'll say, circle each other for a little bit, especially once you see a halftime switch. So we'll kind of see how both of these teams test each other early on in these rounds. You're going to see what looks like a library overtake coming out pretty early on here from Lycus, which is, I mean, it's pretty stock standard. This is not something that FloatTech are Gonna be super surprised by as they go through this. We're gonna have Aphex on that cutoff from that fluke balcony window. And on a drone now as well, as there isn't really a ton of extension here from FloatTech. They're playing things pretty close to the chest, which does sacrifice some stalling power, but it does also mean that when that execute goes down, they're going to have more bodies.
Yeah, and just given so much of this space, especially just with how many players are in this position, Vipo is able to find one, and that's exactly the thing that Lycus do not need at this moment, because you still have to deal with that Tuber out, Cade, even the Mira. There is just so much utility on that bomb site, and now you have to go in it with a 4v5 and your diffuser is on the opposite side of the site. It's just such a difficult situation. Again, like I said to you earlier on, it really feels like that sometimes Lycus just makes their job too difficult and it really is.
Yeah, we see Aphex almost get taken out as well. They're really struggling to deal with the utility on this wall, and then that 2-pro is going to stall things out even more. There's a minute 15 seconds left, which is a good bit of time, but not with that pick coming out from Zonky. Beautiful play on that doorway. And that's going to make everything harder. Now that hard breach is gone, so many additional walls they want to open are just going to remain closed. And he's still stalling out this main breach so effectively. And the defenders, they're keeping this pressure on. They're not giving FloatTech any room to breathe.
Another pick. Jade just trying to find anything. This Aphex just all alone in a 1v5. You can already see the tempo being set in the very first round. There really is almost so much you can do. And so far, this game is playing exactly how it should be on paper.
Certainly would agree based off of the things I've heard and seen so far. Those track stingers on blue were placed just, I mean, not far enough into the staircase. They let, I believe it was Vipoa on that Lesion stands in about the perfect spot he needed to just sit and watch that main lobby area, which with Cadence trying to go in there and uses Ash charges to get utility off of the wall, that was all he needed. He didn't need any extra space. And so just that, like that little error just starts this domino effect from the side of Lycus. And then they don't seem to expect the fact that even though the defenders are all on the site, they still have to pressure outwards. They don't want to get suffocated by this attack.
Yeah, we've talked about how both of these teams on paper are not evenly matched, but also they play two relatively very completely different play styles. Definitely in the favor of FloatTech. Last week, when I watched FloatTech in their 2-0 in their very first game, they were doing a phenomenal job of just simply understanding not only their positions, but also trying to figure out the positions of their opponents, whether or not just be with simple raw intel from drones or default cams, or just doing a process of an elimination. On the other hand, Lycus have the exact opposite. They had a very difficult job just trying to figure out their position around the map, trying to figure out how their positions can put them in a winning situation in the late round. And when you have two teams like this, where the biggest component of the winning factor for FloatTech is their intel, and the biggest downfall for Lycus is also their intel, it's kind of a situation where these two playstyles completely favor and just dismantle Lycus. And it's a situation where, again, as I talked about with the rebuild, you're obviously going to have a lot of those overall, problems with, direction, especially in the IGL, having an understanding of what you exactly want to do in the micro settings throughout the round. But when you have a team like FloatTech that is just so good at just spotting and exposing those gaps in a relatively fast fashion, there's only so much you can really do in game.
Certainly do agree there, especially with the pressure they put up with that intel. I mean, there was just no room to breathe on that attack. Even players that were like on like that mezzanine balcony outside the wall, they were getting peeked from that office doorway. They just, at every step of the way, FloatTech were very good at predicting and then aggressing onto the positions that Lycus were trying to take. And so not only, like you were saying, is the intel overwhelmingly in favor of FloatTech for most of that round, but then that intel is also being shoved in the faces of Lycus, and it just, they're already discombobulated, and it's just being taken advantage of so thoroughly, and it is quite a beautiful thing to see a team do well like that, you know. But I would like a little bit more from Lycus. You know, I've only gotten like one of these casts so far in Blitz. They've been canceling all the others. Give me something, man, please, I beg.
Speaking of our first game, was canceled today. I believe it was Outlast Black who ended up forfeiting to Envy. Envy now 3-0 in their group, essentially have already qualified. Obviously, if you go into the statistics and the deep math, there's still maybe a chance for Outlast Black, but it is just highly unlikely, especially performance and Envy probably being one of the favorite teams to win it all this entire series. And also, to be fair, FloatTech also is up there, even though they have really fallen short at those final hurdles. They do look really good. Lycus Empire, this is a matchup where they just absolutely really do need to win.
Yeah, it's always awkward when you put yourself in that kind of position, because it just, I mean, this is the kind of game where normally there would be no pressure on Lycus, but because of kind of how the standings are right now, there is a ton of pressure on Lycus. And that really can put you in kind of a weird mental state as a player of knowing that you have to win, and it makes you afraid to make mistakes and go in there and dislodge players. Speaking of dislodging, we're going to have Dami sitting in that dark corner inside of Library. And this is a kind of a position that they absolutely need to clear, but he is playing Wamai, which means that getting utility in there to do it is going to be very, very difficult. But Monty's just going to jump inside here, successfully taking some space inside of the site. But a C4 downs him right away. Zonky gets 2 for his trouble as well. Almost a third, but Caden on the glass is a little bit better. And the attack is scrambling here to get things done, but they managed to equalize the man count. The diffuser's going down, but no, Hectic! He gets 1, downs the diffuser. 2 versus 1 now, which Rai has found himself in. Plant is going down once again, but the glass is nervous. Gonna relocate. That air jab is gonna reveal exactly where Rai is. Plant going down yet again. It's going to be successful. 44 seconds to retake onto the site. Kill these 2 attackers, but they can play outside. They can play a crossfire. They have so many areas they could be in. Slowly creeping his way in. Trying to find anything. But neither of the attackers are giving themselves away. They're holding the cross on him now. They know exactly where he is. And Jay cleans it up. A rocky but successful round has been claimed by Lycus.
Kind of a situation where we've talked about how there has been a really big problem of Lycus in their overall intel game. Their solution for that was to just completely move around that early game. Move around, clearing the map, hitting that map control, going for that direct take, had that glass, had the Monty paired with a glass. It is a textbook rush that we see from regions like LATAM and, APAC and Oceania. And it's kind of a situation where, sure, it got you around. It was relatively convincingly, probably one of the more convincing rounds that I've seen, especially in a 2v1 situation for Lycus, that I'm pretty sure that they even lost one over just last week. So we could already see just a little bit of that coordination that we didn't see last week now in this game. The problem is that's not going to work every single round, especially in a bomb site like maybe perhaps a kitchen, or maybe perhaps now that we're seeing on the basement. Sure, it is still relatively easy to get into the bomb site, but compared to just a double window with that Cade and the tuber out on board and even the mute at that, it's kind of a situation where you're not going to be able to get that quick jab, and we're again going to need to see Lycus really problem solve in this early to mid round.
Yeah, it's something that we don't like one-off plays like that, but it's like you said, that's the key there, is that it is a one-off play, and they're going to be expecting that FloatTech now. And if Lycus try to pull something fast like that, it's not going to work nearly as well the second time. So we're going to see much more traditional take come out of Lycus yet again. Going over from this piano side, gathering information, getting their players inside of the building, and starting to work the map. We do see Vipoa up top playing as that Goyo, and last time he was on a roam like this, it was something that Lycus struggled to deal with. He managed to pick off Cadence before he'd properly had impact on the round. And we have that lesion yet again, but this time actually, it's going to be Vipoa falling first, which is a lot of ground for Lycus, a lot of good ground for them, and if they've been struggling like they have so far, that opening pick is going to open up so much breathing room.
And also, it essentially just pushes the rest of FloatTech to that first floor. This allows for Lycus to just completely set up this vertical, have control of these top floors, and not really worry about that lone game. Sure, you could perhaps maybe see a flank float. With that man situation on top of that, you have... Okay, never mind. Well, Dami just shoots Che in the head, and no, probably one of the better chances for them to get a pick. And you also have two players upstairs, and now you're starting to see Lycus completely just be shut down from this retake.
Very quick pick onto one of those players, but they fall back immediately as they know they don't have to waste their lives up here. They have the man advantage and also the space that they need. And now that's forcing Lycus to get desperate with the way they're trying to push this. We see Ninetales walking right down blue. He's killed off by Rai. Rai gets a second onto the player on the breach. The last one left on main stairs all alone, trying to make anything happen, but his location is known. And they aren't giving him the fights that he wants. He has to walk down to try to get something done, but he's already been shot so many times. And they're holding the three-way cross. Sunk ends up finishing him off, but it's just a shooting gallery.
It really is just so beautiful seeing these crosses be set up from FloatTech, because it's something you don't see a whole lot in T3, and that's not necessarily a shot at T3. It's just a given that if you're in a grassroots situation, you're not going to see that coordination, and that's what gives the consistency to FloatTech. Is not only are they so coordinated on the attack, but also when they're on the defense, they're able to set up these crosses and really time these flanks. That flank with the two players upstairs, Dami inside of Kitchen, not only did they get 2 picks off of that, but they also read the room so well. Felled all of those 3 players back to site. They didn't want to give another one to the way of Lycus Empire, and they wanted to really let Lycus just boil in the water that they found themselves in and really just kind of make the mistakes on their own, start to scramble, and that's exactly what we saw to do. We just saw a 3-man push, a split, giving 3 isolated gunfights to FloatTech, and it really is a situation after bad decision after bad decision where Lycus continue to just make these rounds so difficult when it really doesn't need to be.
I must say, I really love the way that FloatTech approached that retake on the top floor, right? Because obviously, like, they have the 2 bodies and they did it in a situation where they had man equality, but just the knowledge that your teammate got killed by 2 dudes just kind of walking around upstairs, one, that put them back in a man deficit, but it also just makes you fearful for where other people could be. It applies a ton of pressure. But then FloatTech just fall back to the site. They left Dami up on that hatch in dining, just so if anyone tried to push backside, then he has that covered. But everyone else was just sitting on the site, playing into that crossfire, which they had established. So as soon as Lycus tried to make the desperation play and collapse on the site, hoping that the last 2 defenders would be gone, they don't just have easy gunfights, because, I mean, Rai is a turret in that position on shelf, but then even after he gets those 2 kills, they know exactly where the last player is, and they just hold that crossfire. No one overswings. They just trust that their teammates are going to hold the angle when it counts, and it really is beautiful to see plays like that come to life.
Yeah, and keep in mind that this is Lycus's map pick. That is more than likely why they're starting on the attack. Chalet does tend to favor, the 4-2 defensive side, so this isn't really necessarily that much of a surprise. But it's not the fact that they're down 1-2, it's the fact that there's situations where there's just huge gaps, specifically in this situation where FloatTech is allowed to retake space. Flank, whether it be 3 or just simply 1 player, Lycus is never really ready for that. And on top of that, when they are in a man deficit and they do need to gain those numbers back, they had relatively a decent amount of time and just put themselves in 3 isolated gunfights. And it's kind of a situation where there's only really so much you can do, especially now that they don't have a coach. I mentioned it earlier that they're currently looking for a coach, and you have plenty of time until stage 2, which I don't know exactly. I believe it's actually, or stage 1 rather, next year, which is June. So you have essentially almost a year So there's plenty of time for Lycus to really figure out their struggles here. But right now, we're just not really seeing any immediate answers that are really finding any success.
Yeah, and the here and now a big issue, and it's something that you see a lot, especially in teams that are less experienced or have a lot of new parts, is just not expecting the ways that FloatTech are going to throw aggression their way. And it's, again, something that's not uncommon to see, but it is a little bit strange given the pedigree of the organization we're looking at, and presumably some of the players as well.
You talked about it not being very uncommon, but you know what is common? A tech break. A player lost some power, so we're gonna go to a quick technical break. We'll be back relatively shortly, right after this.
This is how I like it.
Came in and you're looking like a sign of grace. I know, but I can never match your name or face. My fault, I didn't notice it was out of place. You painting fairy tales on the wall, calling to the better of the halves of me. Please show me just a little bit of honesty. I'd hope I got a heart that I can salvage, but it's getting harder now to recall. I know well what let out both try. You could have anything you wanted it all for your fool's gold. And I know well why deaf and half blind. You could get anything you wanted. Yeah, I would have handed it all over, falling for you. grace, I know, but I can never match your name to face my fault. But when I noticed it was far too late, you left a fingerprint on my soul. My head in my hands, listen up, says my teacher. In front of the class, he says it.
Located by attackers.
Welcome back. I'm Alios, being joined by Goose. For those of you who may just be joining back, Lycus Empire versus FloatTech is currently taking place, with FloatTech kind of dominating the game so far. Maybe not dominating because it's a little bit early to tell, but I mean, Goose, they've been doing really well for themselves.
Oh yeah, 100%. It is
5 seconds to insertion.
a situation, you know, if you're now just joining in,
Attackers are heading
Lycus
out to
Empire,
defuse the bomb.
ex-LATAM team did poorly, to say the least, last week. On paper, this should be a very dominant game for FloatTech. Also, a little fact that I just realized is that Zonky played against Lycus in the quals for LATAM. I just remembered that. That's actually kind of funny. But yeah, nonetheless, FloatTech is in a situation where every single feat, even when Lycus, whether that be a man advantage or map control, FloatTech is there to get that retake, to get that flank, to just completely shut down and dismantle the entire round. And the second round in a row, if you see that little glimpse of that IQ in the Monty, we can see that they're essentially teasing a rush or at least a push right into bathroom, which is
Monty being played more like BLITZ here is going to make his entry into the building very quickly. Get that pick out to Dami as well. There are a lot of early space up top here for the attack. Man advantage firmly in their hands as well by this point with that pick on the Zonky. C9 Tail still being brave on this Monty, utilizing that shield to the best of his ability to take as much space as he can. The defenders still have control of the site itself, but the vertical play on Kitchen is very, very powerful, and they're going to want to mount something of a retake at some point in the round.
Swapping mags.
It's also in a situation where that's exactly what you need is FloatTech. Sure, you do have all that top control, but again, look at this flank coming from Bipoa. He does get a couple of shots, but is able to lose his life. And FloatTech, this is the best situation that Lycus Empire has had.
Certainly is, especially with those last two picks coming out, completely denying the round from the defenders off of some quality quick plays.
And again, the second round, not only won by Lycus Empire, but the second round won off of the back of a rush. And, you know, if you come in to Siege and you get into Pro League, you get into competitive, one of the first things you're going to say is that regions like LATAM and APAC kind of really just bank off and rely on those less plays. Sometimes that's kind of just, you know, an over-exaggeration. In other times, it's simply just a fact like we're seeing here. And to be fair, though, teams like Lycus Empire, when it comes to a situation where they need to find the exact position, get a quick jab rush, whether it be on an extended site that we saw on that extension to the top floor, or the site previously that we saw on Bar and Gaming where they just went directly into site. they are the best at it. And they really can take, some of that knowledge and experience of finding the positions of those defenders close to sight and then apply it to those earlier points and those extended positions around the map. I'm kind of curious on why we haven't really been able to see them, even though we did essentially see it last time, but it was an extension very close to sight.
See how Lycus attack this side. Last time, another quick play is what got them that win, but probably won't work again, especially right after they did the previous one. So we'll see if they try to go for something more traditional, which it does look like they might be going for something a little bit less unique, but Rai going to be being put in the dirt right off of the bat here by Cadence on that nook, excuse me. He's made his way into Westman, and he's taken a lot of good space over here. And his teammates are there to support him and are taking some of the space around him as well. But we are seeing a little bit of a retake coming out from that Mute. But this Monty, who's played more like a Blitz last round, so we'll have to see if that's how they use it again. But that's a lot of space taking power in their hands, but yet again, Vipoa in an awkward position. He manages to get a pick this time and tries to find another one, but just gonna fall back. Heck, though, is gonna tag on. And that's gonna put a ton of pressure on these attackers, especially since they know that Vipoa is in this position, even though he is on 8 HP and practically walking inside of a grave right now. It is still a problem they have to deal with.
He's gonna get rid of Vipoa. He was able to get one. Eventually, he will lose his life. But now the problem is, Lycus Empire, with only 3 players left on the board, you do have that Monty with a DMR and that AR on Buck, so you do still have plenty of an opportunity, but you haven't cleared top mez, you haven't cleared library, and you're essentially forcing yourself to either go for a retake. That's exactly what they're doing right now, a last-ditch effort trying to take control of this extension onto the top floor. But all this is going to do is simply just waste a couple of time, especially if, yet again, FloatTech are successfully able to just rotate right back down to the side.
Setting breach charge.
Yeah, they're playing this extension for a little bit here just to see if they can waste some time, but they don't even honestly need to fall back off of these most likely, as they do have some pretty powerful positions. But Jay gonna catch Zonky on an overextension. Retake being mounted onto Mezzanine by Hectic. It doesn't look like they know where he is. The Monty has pushed Dami out of his position, but Hectic bags a second for the round, makes things a 2 versus 2 yet again, and he's back in bar, completely behind the Monty, but Apex wins that gunfight. It's all left up to Dami, and he's not good enough for the 2-on-1. Monty is too much to bear.
That is exactly what I want to see out of Lycus. Getting 3 rounds on the attack. Obviously, it's not like a clubhouse or even a skyscraper where a 3-3, a 4-2 attacking half is crazy. Chalet, in previous, games and stages of all tiers of Siege, all regions, has been able to really, swing the other way of the attack, especially if you have that roam and that retake from FloatTech. Fair. We've been talking so much on how Lycus has been really relying on that rush. FloatTech, the rounds that they won was from a successful either retake or roam flank by a singular player, and because that was shut down, a specific line of Vipoa on the top floor, they weren't able to waste enough time, and that allowed those last 3 Lycus Empire players to do their due diligence, find out the positions of the players with the still relatively, deep drone economy they had in those 3 players. They gave the time for Lycus to read into the defensive set of FloatTech, and that's something that we had not seen them been able to do in rounds previous.
See if that's momentum they can keep up. We also get to see if FloatTech are able to adapt to the way that Lycus have been sort of winning these last couple rounds, and especially that last one. We're going to see the basement again, which was a very successful retake for FloatTech in the past. And that success they're going to want to try to replicate here. Or alternatively, they can go for a strategy of not letting that space be taken in the first place, but we'll have to see if as the early entries are being made by Lycus, getting inside of library, which has been a very common tactic for them, but they've also gotten inside of office. So there's less unoccupied space up top, but Hectic finds the one gap and gets that opening pick. He's gonna go for more, but Jay's better in that fight. Jay's good for 2, actually, from that position. 3 even as they continue to aggress on the Ash, but none of it is successful. As Lycus, they take a 3-2 man advantage and secure a potential round victory if they could play the rest of this out.
Lycus slowing down after getting those 3 picks on the top 2 floors, resetting their entire attack. You know, be working this vertical, working the hatches, getting those drones out, just get enough info. They don't want to over push their position. They don't want to overextend themselves. They want to make sure that they get this additional intel so they don't give these last 2 players on FloatTech yet another opportunity to have a comeback in a round. But with this bomb site relatively clear, this could be an opportunity for them to simply jump down.
Flashbang out! Right, though, gonna take out Ninetales, playing on that connector hatch. Makes things a little bit more difficult for the attacks as they can no longer rely on the trade game as much. But they have an entire minute to work with here. Granted, not the health advantage, but just having that time and space to work out exactly where the defenders are and see if you can isolate that gunfight is going to play to their advantage here. Although they might actually just try to get a wall open here and then hop on drones, just see where people are. They're using this minute they have to the fullest. It looks like, yeah, they're going to try to get that wall open on main breach and then try to plant presumably on the trash can or maybe rotate the thermite back inside. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is. With every second they waste, even though they have a lot of time, that is still finite. Thermite will start planting on that shelf, but the smoke grenade gonna make that more difficult, but he does manage to get it down, but it's a 1 versus 1 now, Jay versus Rai, with Jay being on a sliver of HP. Any shot from either of these guns, now that Dami is being revived, will do the job just right. They know where the diffuser is too, but Jay, he's good for the fight onto Rai. It's only Dami that's left, but he's just gonna smoke off the main breach. He can't run through with how low his health is. He can't see the diffuser either. This is a genius play. Gonna run through the smoke with the pistol out, but no! The smoke grenade, all it takes is FloatTech bring that round back.
Almost a winning attacking half for Lycus Empire. I love the rotate. Even though a player simply could have just swung in connector and killed that thermite planting because the player, I believe it was Jay on breach, had no oversight onto that position. So also maybe a little bit of a misplay, especially in that situation where Lycus was putting out by FloatTech. But nonetheless, they still find a way out of it. A huge play by Smoke. But to be fair, this is a Lycus that I just absolutely love. We already see them have a completely different playstyle than last time. Don't get me wrong, they still do have a whole lot of gaps in their intel game, but they're problem solving and finding alternatives to compensate for not having that. And that's absolutely what I love. You can have a team that has a lot of gaps, that has a lot of problems in their overall game, but if that team is really good at problem solving, like we've seen Lycus in that half, it's a situation where there's always going to be a solution for your problem in front of
Attackers
you.
are moving out to locate a bomb and defuse it.
I want to see how they do in the defense now, since, I mean, right, obvious statement here, but the attack has to attack now, and that's what FloatTech are doing. But that presents a lot of freedom for Lycus Empire, and it gives them room to set up the map, set up their own labyrinth and puzzle, which FloatTech now have to solve. So we'll see if they can sort of use that newfound freedom effectively in order to lock down the map. As it looks like we're going to see something pretty direct here onto Master Bedroom with Hectic, sort of preparing that outer trophy area for potentially a repel for his teammate, as they can also cut off any player that tries to walk up or down the trophy stairs.
Yeah, we're already seeing this translation of these crossfires. We saw it on the defense from FloatTech more in the earlier half of the game. We didn't see it in the last 3 rounds. Success. But we're now seeing FloatTech not trying to exactly problem solve, but actually rather set up an entire hold and then go for the push. This is completely contrary and opposite from what we saw Lycus do on their attack, but because they've spent so much time trying to set this up, they haven't really been able to get much map control.
You have Vipoa hitting a Lurkin from 45, and that could be successful. Not yet, though, as Mute hits the deck. And it puts Vipoa in an awkward position. He can't walk underneath that hatch. There could be someone watching it. But he needs to get this pick so his team can get space. But it's actually FloatTech that are all falling, as Lycus, better in all of these gunfights. Dami and Zonky do start to bring things back, but they have a huge health deficit, as well as a man deficit to make up in this last minute.
Just a completely different Lycus that we saw in that first half of the first half. And now we're seeing FloatTech completely be stumped here. They have no solution for this roam, for this defensive setup. And it's kind of, mirroring what you talked about earlier, that they were going to have, relatively some difficulties translating onto the second half. And again, relying on these crossfires, and it really just seems like a formula that just really isn't translating, that isn't working in their favor anymore.
30 seconds left. Zonky making a ton of noise on this trophy stairway. That smoke is going to be so powerful in these dying seconds, especially with how low on health Zonky is. They just have to make this entry into Master, but the smoke canisters are making it so difficult. Lycus aren't giving up the bodies either. Trying to make their way into Closet, but that smoke has Mashani up close. It's such a powerful gun. The Paladin Smite, good for 2, as Lycus take a convincing first defense.
In my opinion, it really does feel like that Lycus has control of this entire series and first map, so especially in that translation after that technical timeout. We saw in that round, again, as I spoke about before, FloatTech setting up those crossfires, trying and hoping that they would catch a Lycus defender rotating back, but we saw that dude inside of Kitchen play his position absolutely perfectly. And when you didn't have those players, when you didn't have those defenders walk into your line of sight, rotate from their positions or try to create a new position, FloatTech didn't really do a good job of really pushing the tempo, being that really aggressive play style that you do need to play on the attack. And that's why they had so much trouble trying to get really anything in that round. And after Lycus go to Kitchen, they will opt to go all the way down to basement. Again, both of these teams really playing out of the norm for what and how a Chalet should play. And I absolutely love it, because both teams, even though it is more Lycus, are doing a great job.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and defuse it.
It always is wonderful to see teams doing problem solving well during casting. It makes your job as a color caster a lot easier since there's more to talk about. Speaking of talk about, though, FloatTech are going to have to talk about how to get into the map here. And it is not uncommon to see an attacking team do poorly for the first round or two of a starting half, and then start to kind of pick things up once they figure out how the defending team is going to play the map. So we could see FloatTech to kind of read into what has been discussed previously by Goose and start to figure things out a little bit more, but it is certainly easier said than done. And it looks like so far they've been taking things pretty slowly here. They have gotten some vertical play done by sending those ram drones in, but ultimately not really anyone from Lycus has been moved.
Yeah, you can already see that this entire push is on the opposite side of where Lycus are. We can see a majority of these roamers and these extended defenders are over I-bar and main stairs, while FloatTech, a majority of their push is focused over by the Solarium Kitchen side. And whether it not be a very good read by FloatTech with that ping, it does seem that they have identified that there is at least a presence on this side of the map. It doesn't matter, because Jay is still able to find it.
Just been an absolute terror this game. So far, 11-4 the top in the lobby. And Zonky had already used quite a bit of his utilities, so that vertical play will remain in play for the rest of the round, but being in that man deficit, especially with how well Lycus have been playing this defensive half, that's gonna throw a wrench into things. That Tubero as well is gonna make opening up these walls very, very time consuming, as he has a good, I think it was 30, 40 seconds of time denial in his pocket for those walls.
We're seeing these players overswing, get over aggressive. They're just trying to be offensive. But just look at how potent and how safe Lycus are playing, not trying to give an extra one, just trying to concede their position.
Sahi is going to get killed off a little bit early, however, but does a ton of damage to Dami, which Cadence will capitalize on, and then some as well. 4 versus 2 going into this execute, make that a 4 versus 1. Jay still maintaining his position as the terror of the lobby. Ninetales tags on for the last. And Lycus, they've found that formula.
This is honestly exactly what I wanted to see out of This is a completely different team than I saw last week. They're not out of the woods just yet. They not still have that match point, but FloatTech, still not taking their time out, are in a very, very difficult situation here because they just don't have an answer. And the problems that I talked about Lycus on the attack of just simply not being able to consistently gather that intel and knowledge of the defender positions is now a problem that is completely shutting down these attacks with FloatTech, because every time they get an engagement, they get into a gunfight or die to a defender, they're not even fully aware of their position. I talked about that there was a ping, they did identify that there was a presence, but they didn't read into how aggressive that extension, specifically from Jay, was really going to be, overextending themselves and allowing that first pick to go completely untraded for around 15 to 30 seconds.
10 seconds left before
But again, on top of just losing that player, wasting so much time, before you had that tuber out, and there was additional time wasting from that defender on-site utility, it's kind of a situation where it's just piling problem after problem onto FloatTech.
Certainly is not the way you want things to go here. Going on to Bar now, which is... I would say this is a pretty standard site rotation so far that we've seen from Lycus, but I mean, it's working so far. They've won both of their defensive rounds so far, and they've won them both fairly convincingly, I would say. Good to see the Flores here, just trying to get some early util destruction down. They want to identify where these frostbats are. If you hit one during the execute when there are 20 seconds left, it can oftentimes be the difference between an L or a W in said execute. So we'll see what else he looks to get with those, and we'll see if they can successfully locate those frostbats, because having been a player or having played competitive for about 4 years actively, I cannot count the amount of executes I've lost on that site because someone didn't check for a frostbat.
Yeah, you know, it is really just...
You know who you are.
It is just really funny on how Frost just, her entire capability, her entire ability to be useful operators completely changes on this map. We already seen FloatTech get really aggressive, get 2 opening picks, almost a third with it, and this is exactly what they needed to do. Completely changing up their tempo and playstyle, and now it's leading to a 2v5.
Make that a 2 versus 4, 1 versus 4, as Ninetales gets 1 before being refragged. Everything's up to Sahi inside of the site. Shotgun and SMG-12 in hand. Mipoa, though, takes it right out. And that's FloatTech finally finding the solution, finding that tempo switch that they needed to stop this momentum that Lycus was building.
It is a situation where we've talked so much about the bar game site, or a bar bomb site rather. Kind of a situation where it is one of the better bomb sites next to Kitchen, but when you have an entire matchup where teams are not in their best ability to have that bomb site itself locked down, and you have essentially 2 rushes, almost 3 now, it's kind of a situation where you can turn one of the best bomb sites into one of the worst, simply off of the playstyle that we were seeing from both of these teams. We saw FloatTech in their very first 2 attacking rounds take a relatively slow and tedious approach, trying to make sure they drone out every single thing, set up those crossfires, Took them 2 rounds to realize that that simply was
10 seconds
a
left
formula that
before
was
insertion.
not going to work up against Lycus Empire, and then completely
5
changing
seconds
up their
left.
playstyle into that aggressive in-your-face. If they see an isolated player in an isolated position,
Attackers
they
objective
go
is
for it
locate
as
a
soon
bomb
as
and
they identify it, and it has led to success. But now on a bomb site where you have to clear so much map control, especially with an extension over into bar so heavy, you're going to need to add a little bit more to that aggression.
See what that missing ingredient is. I want to see where Hectic goes on this Nook. Because so far we haven't seen Nook do too much
Bringing hand
up
online.
there lurking, as she's kind of been played like an entry so far in this game. We'll see if Hectic does anything differently. Quickly making his way into Pickle, and he gets that pick onto Jay. That's such a good player to get off of the board with the terror that he's been on this defense. And that is going to go untraded, at least for now, as Hectic is just going to try and anticipate this next flank. He knows someone's going to try to walk up those main stairs and refrag something, but he might have taken his eyes off of it too soon. No, he anticipates the flank from Cadence, and that's exactly what his team needs to get into this round. Ninetales is going to get one back, though, but they have still managed to go up 4-3 in man count.
Bomb
Getting rid
located
of that
by
Solus,
attackers.
especially so early on, it's not going to do a whole lot in the overall utility side, but it's just simply going to make FloatTech's job so much easier. And it does look like they did get that Cade Claw, so now they're going to be able to effectively open that wall with no problem whatsoever, with a minute 30 still left on the clock, and you can still see they have so much drone utility in their pockets. There's just so much for FloatTech to set up and play with. They simply just have to put themselves in these favorable gunfights and not let these isolated 1v1s go away.
Seeing Asahi trying to get aggressive here. He knows he has to get something back, but Dami punishes it, as he has that long angle into the master bedroom covered with his DMR. Smoke canisters are going to start ringing out here, but it's not really going to dislodge anyone just yet. Rai is in a good position to plant here if his teammates can cover. And it looks like that's exactly what he wants to do. He's going to start going for that plant. C4 being tossed out. Hectic gets a pick on the Ninetales. And then the last on Twifix as well. 4K for him on the round. Is almost single-handedly he shuts down this defense and everything it throws at them.
I mentioned earlier that Lycus shouldn't have been too ahead of themselves when they had that 5-3 scoreline. And I was exactly right. It did take 2 rounds on the attack for FloatTech to really settle in. And that is usually what you would expect, not only on Chalet, but on attack as a whole, especially for these teams like FloatTech that just play so slow and really do make some rounds a little bit too tedious than they really should be. But that we saw in the round previous, that we saw specifically Hectic get really aggressive. That wasn't aggressiveness that we saw the round previously, but with a little bit less help from his team. Not to say that's necessarily a bad term of effect, but again, we can see round after round that they can continue to apply this aggression early on to these extensions and roamers of Lycus, but in many different forms, always giving Lycus something new to deal with.
I did say earlier as well, kind of like what you were saying, sometimes it can take a couple rounds for the attacking team to kind of figure out what the defensive formula is and kind of find the solution to that. If you're a math nerd, don't fact check me on the terminology I use there. And FloatTech,
Attackers have discovered the location.
they found the tech they need to break into these defensive lines and give Lycus Empire the living hell they need to capitalize on. And it has been working. Now, obviously, Lycus can read into how these attacks are being played and adapt on their own as
10
well.
seconds to go.
It's just a matter of who is able to do that more effectively sometimes.
5 seconds
We're
left
seeing
before
Lycus
insertion.
move on to the other bomb site they won in the first quarter of, or in the first
Attackers'
half
objective is
of
to
this
defuse the
second
bomb.
half, which is the basement.
Now you kind of see, I don't want to necessarily say that FloatTech has completely taken back this map. I think now we're essentially not only in the round count, but also in the overall just feeling the aura and getting the map. It's really an uneven playing ground. 2 rounds now, we've now had FloatTech find a formula in many different forms, whether it be overall consistently structured aggression or aggression from a singular entry player like Hectic. that they've been able to deal with these extension and roamers from Lycus, but also Lycus did change up with a heavy extension last round, and now we're going to essentially see a little bit of the same thing with extension over all the way over into bedroom. It looks like Cadence just read into this so well, but it doesn't matter because Cadence still finds the first.
He was immediately refragged as well as kind of on an island, but getting a pick onto the gridlock isn't an awful trade. Wait, so gridlock is very good, especially on maps like this, at just like locking down the flanks and making it very noisy or painful usually to get that flank off. So getting that getting that kind of off the board, absolutely great. But you also lose your Solus and one of the players who is doing a little bit better on the scoreline and also being a little bit more willing to be in the face of those attackers. It's a pretty weird trade. You could honestly argue it being to the advantage of either side, but Lycus and FloatTech are going to continue on.
To be fair, though, after that first entry pick, aside from this control over by Solarium and Kitchen, there hasn't really been a full extension on this top 2 floors from FloatTech, and this is really just mirroring the round before, where they have a very one-direction push onto the bomb site, not opening that snowmobile wall, not even attempting to open it. Keep in mind, they do have that ace paired with those can openers. It does look like they will maybe try to rotate over there now. It looks like they will. Again, it's just questionable, because if you're Lycus Empire, not only is this really easy to read, but you've seen it the round previous that you defended this bomb site.
So much pressure that they're just not applying to the site as well. They can rotate freely inside a snowmobile garage to whatever positions they may need. That's going to weigh on the conscience of FloatTech, but Rai weighing on the conscience of Jay so far. Hectic as well, getting one of his own. And it looks like so far the linear execute is working, unless Ninetales is able to pull some magic out of a hat, which so far completely unable to do so. FloatTech put themselves up on match points.
Honestly, kind of a round where FloatTech set up this very specific play. FloatTech is a team that if they have a push in mind, they will fully commit. There are very rare times where they'll completely reconstruct or try and retake on the other side of the map if a push doesn't work. They're kind of a team that they'll continue to just hammer their head on a brick wall until eventually it breaks, and if it doesn't, you lose the round. And it's kind of one of those situations where Lycus weren't fully prepared, especially when you just lose those gunfights onto a position like that blue swing that they lost in the round previously that they tried to attack with that exact same push. It's kind of a sense where I do like that FloatTech kind of took that round as we'll do the exact same push. We'll tweak a little bit of things with a less heavy roam from Lycus. It did make that early round easier, which in turn allowed them to have more time in that, transition to pushing on the bomb site. But again, there was no presence from FloatTech over in Fireplace. There was an easy potential for Lycus to completely retake and roam, and we just didn't really see it from them.
What could potentially be the final round of this map being played on bar yet again. And this was the first site that FloatTech were able to dismantle once they kind of figured out the defensive formula, which Lycus was bringing to the table. And we'll see if they're able to replicate that success. They are doing things a little bit differently than they were before. They aren't just sending Hectic in, brushing it fast immediately, for one. And it looks like they're going to place a little bit more emphasis on library and trying to get those players out. And Sahi, he is playing a good operator for that position, but is not going to have a ton of util to protect him, so he's going to be relying on falling off if they do look to push him out.
Also, another, kind of, presence and idea that we haven't really touched on for Lycus is players like Jay and Caden have kind of slowed down a little bit. You do have Ninetales, making his name for himself, putting himself back on the board. But that firepower that we saw on the attacking half of Lycus, especially for those entry players like Jay, it's really slowed down on this defense. And as I say that, Jay gets the very first entry pick. taking the words right out of my mouth. But just look at how much time, half of the round now gone in FloatTech. They have absolutely nothing and have lost a player for it.
Not only that, but the diffuser's also been surrendered within Jay's domain, and he's probably going to know that. And being Legion, he can lock that down pretty effectively all on his own. And that's going to be exactly what he's looking to do right here. The rest of the defense as well, just looking to whittle away this utility that the attack are bringing. And they have to waste so much time trying to go in and get this diffuser. Rai going in and trying to do this by himself, but there's so much that he has to check. And there's active information on him with the cam, but he isn't even really going to try to go for this player that on top of the diffuser. But players on other areas are falling. Things are back to being completely even, but the attack still doesn't have this diffuser. Jay still sits on top of it. They know exactly where he is, but it's still a fight someone has to take as he relocates slightly. Rai, though, is going to be better on that swing. 30 seconds left. Control of the diffuser back within the grasp of FloatTech, as they have to make something work quite soon here. Looks like both defenders are still up top. They have to run into these gunfights, even if they are unfavorable. And so far, they are, as we see Zonky get down 2 versus 1, 1 versus 3 now.
10 seconds.
Sahi, all that's left between Lycus Empire losing this map. He gets one, but immediately killed off by Rai. As that's FloatTech finding exactly what they need and winning 4 rounds in a row to secure Lycus's map pick.
Now, that is a very big map from FloatTech. Obviously, it was Lycus's map, but it was a round, or rather a map, where there were so many rounds, even where FloatTech won, that I wasn't 100% convinced that they had control. They didn't have control of that map whatsoever, even though it was a 7-5. And that's not to say FloatTech was just making a bunch of mistakes. Lycus put a phenomenal game up. Even though they didn't win the map, a completely different team that I saw last week, whether it be they talked to themselves even without a coach, or if it's that sub coming in, Ninetales, who did have a lot of effect, especially in that second half when you had those entry players start to slow down. But at the end of the day, it still just was not enough.
Fortunately for them, that is the case, and especially with something that we've kind of seen a lot, where usually in the best of 3 expected to win your map, lose your opponents, and then kind of hash it out in the third. Lycus can't do that anymore. They have to take FloatTech down on their own map pick, which is going to be coming up next. But before we can get into that, we are going to send things over to a quick break just to make sure that everything is set up on our end and to give the players a little bit of a break as well. So stay tuned, go get up and grab some popcorn, because we will be right back.
Took a couple L's this week, it's been hard to get out of bed. She never looked that way at me, I swear she's fucking with my head. Take me far away from pain. Take me far away, far from yesterday. This ain't a love story, it's a funeral. Darling, damn, you look beautiful. You're killing my heart, it's the usual. Killing my heart is the usual. All you do is waste my time. Done being a victim of your phony love. All you do is waste
message from a new world I'd never known. Something about it felt like it'd been waiting my whole life. Is this home? I can hear each sound calling my name, and I feel angels around when I start to sing. And suddenly
Welcome back, everybody. We got replays, apparently. Do not have replays. Third time is not the charm. We're back.
Dude.
For play day 1 of week 2. If you're now just joining in, it is Lycus Empire, who are currently 0-1 versus FloatTech, who from their previous matchup have a record of 1-0. It was FloatTech to win Lycus' map pick of Chalet 7-5, a very back and forth map overall, but now we get to go on to FloatTech's final map, that being Clubhouse. Do not be warranted, Skyscraper is not the decider, it is Nighthaven, but Clubhouse is correct.
Man, what a day. So like our producers are here now, so this is partially for him. Like you said, Clubhouse is correct. Skyscraper is not the decider. That should be Nighthaven. So a little bit of tomfoolery there, but that's okay. It's a Rimba 6 League. This is a circus that we are all currently working in. So if anyone watching this ever gets involved in production, just be prepared for skullduggery. That is just what we do here. That's just what happens.
I don't think I've ever heard that word in my life. I love it. What did you say?
Skullduggery.
Skullduggery. We're not going to Chalet.
Why are we on Chalet again? What the?
I love amateur siege. It's just, you don't see this in any other esport. It's just it's a little quirky. There we go. We teleported.
Yeah, we're there.
We teleported to Clubhouse. We're there. Oh.
Thank you to High Tech Chad for doing the production tonight.
You would have thought it was nomical, but no, this is a high tech Chad production.
Yeah, not really living up to his name so far.
No, not very high tech at all. I'm gonna be calling him low tech Chad for the rest of the night, apparently.
On to the bands.
On to the bands.
we hope those don't collapse around us as well. Lycus starting off with the Ying, a pretty typical ban, and I believe what they banned for attack last round as well. Which is just a good overall pick, especially if you want to go for something fast, which Lycus have been doing effectively, but I would also be scared of being peeked by Hectic if he had a Ying behind him.
Also, I really love the ban from BLITZ, and I'm just going to go in a little theory. You know, this is a theory. I have no basis whatsoever, aside from the single fact that they played Monty like a Blitz on Chalet. Like, I would see, like, there was 2 to 3 rounds where I'd see a Lycus Empire player rush with their shield down as Monty onto a player, and I was like, I thought Blitz was banned. He is banned. It's a Monty, apparently. So I believe that FloatTech is banning this Blitz very specifically, whether or not they saw it in the previous matchup, or if they just saw how they were playing Monty, and they're like, wow, I really don't want to play against that on a Blitz. So I do think that Blitz ban is going to do a whole lot of favors for FloatTech. But on the contrary, on paper, again, this entire series should be a 2-0 no matter what. And it should be a win, whether or not it goes all the way to Nighthaven Labs. This should be a FloatTech win. But I do believe that Lycus, whether it be just a map win right here in Clubhouse, which keep in mind does count as a point for the entire system if this entire group stage was not complicated enough, whether or not they lose it here or they lose on Nighthaven, I do believe that Lycus will put up a very difficult fight. They will give a lot of problems. We saw there was a lot of problems that FloatTech had to solve, whether it was, you know, in a round micro adaptation, or if it did take the 2 rounds on the attack when they switched sides. There was a situation where there's always something that FloatTech had to deal with that they didn't have to the round or the half previous.
Enjoy the view.
5 seconds
I
remaining.
like this. Oh, I want to point out the. I forgot what she's called. The robot woman, Scopost. Scopost has been brought out, and she provides a lot of interesting, just shenanigan opportunities to teleport. each have their own separate health pools, so one thing that I like to do personally is, well, not that Hectic digging and get killed off on the spot. Funk is going to get that refrag, but a Valkyrie for the only dedicated vertical play operator that we see from FloatTech. I'm taking that trade 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, you know, on paper, especially if you're not very familiar with how Siege works, or specifically maybe even Clubhouse, no breach charges, no last charge. All you have are 2 grenades. They're not going to use that. The best chance for them to even create vertical is going to be that DMR on Dami. That's simply not going to be optional. You can even see they're trying to switch over all the way to dirt, with Zonky now losing his life. It just continues to dwindle down and get worse and worse. Now, FloatTech's best chance is simply for a Lycus Empire player to overswing in their position.
They've been doing a pretty good job of not doing that so far, though. So that ends up happening at all. Yamant is still in play until he is killed off, as is Vipoa, leaving everything up to Dami. He has a good gun for that kind of situation, but 4-on-1. The odds just aren't gonna be great here. As we saw, Lycus Empire, like Lycus was just saying, they're gonna give FloatTech a run for their money here. As now, Dami just has to kind of bait around and see if anyone will reveal themselves or eventually give up an unfavorable fight. But Lycus have been pretty good about that so far. We do see the Scopos making her way to try to kill Dami with shot in the back, but not going to end up working out. Going to get killed off instead. There is also another player up on that top floor. That's the first fight of 4. Make that the second fight of 4. That Dami needs to win this. There's a potential cross being set up by the defense here, depending on where Dami looks to go. Neither of these players are going to reveal themselves, not after the previous 2 picks that he's found. He just has to try to flash these players out and go for something, but his position doesn't have time to go anywhere else, and they know exactly where he is. 20 seconds left. He wants some sort of information, some sort of misplay from either of these players, and he gets it! The Mira oversteps her boundaries. Now, gonna run out with the SMG-12. He almost gets it, but Shay has the cleanup. Such a good clutch attempt from Dami, but no, shut down on the final kill, the final leg of the journey.
My favorite part of that entire round is, and you know, this isn't really on, you know, Lycus's or our faults, because Lycus throughout that early round and last map did a really good job on the defense of really just staying in a safe position, not over swinging, and then as soon as we say that, they turn a 1v4 into a 1v1 and overswing on that isolated player. You know, I don't really need to tell you that that round should not have been that close, but this is a map, and this is a very confusing point, and I really love when easy points come up to me like this as a color caster. But last time that we saw Lycus Empire last week play Clubhouse on the defense, they only played 2 bomb sites. Aside from playing Gym and Master once, the other 5 rounds they played Basement and CCTV. CCTV, sure, it's not, you know, like one of the worst bomb sites in the entire game out of all the maps, but on Clubhouse, it is probably the last bomb site you should go to, especially when you still have that bomb, or not bomb, but you still have that Gym bomb site. And this is a decision that they are now carrying on to week 2 in a second matchup, and I still really don't really have an answer for why they're doing it.
In the words of Voss, did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Lycus have thus far. And we'll see if that could be capitalized on by FloatTech here. It's Hectic, deliberating on exactly how many Hibana pellets he wants to put down. Gonna try to open up a bunch of these openings onto Garage, but Cuervo has something to say about it himself as he shoots off a bunch of them. Now, that is just a hole that's meant for them to peek through, not to jump through, so it not being fully open won't be the end of the world, but it's certainly far from ideal. And it does make Hectic worried that there could be someone extended over on that side. Some of those worries are going to be alleviated with Vipoa making his way onto that side of the map and taking that space, as it looks like we're going to have something with, well, not with Cuervo being involved in the round, as he's killed off by Vipoa, but they're going to try to take both sides of the map here and apply pressure to as many areas as they can.
Yeah, this is, again, a problem that we saw, not only with this bomb site, but specifically on how Lycus played it. Losing that extension over into initiation and construction relatively very early on, with now just the halfway minute mark ticking down. The notable thing, though, is FloatTech have not opened that CC wall whatsoever, so they're going to simply be relying on getting the single wall, applying pressure, getting that mirror wall open, and then also potentially having a player on this highway and trying to get control of highway that, as of now, they don't have.
It is working out so far, though, as Hectic gets that pick onto Jay, but Cadent has a refrag. Vipoa, though, good for 2. Zonky as well gets 1. Everything is left up to Aphex inside a garage. He's going to get Hectic for the first of 4 that he needs, but the diffuser has gone down, and the attack have good positions here. One holding that mirror window, completely locking him outside of CCTV, and they're applying pressure with their utility as well. He has nowhere good to go here. 3 fights to take. He has to try to make something happen. But the information overwhelmingly in the favor of FloatTech as Dami capitalizes. That's going to be FloatTech rectifying the mistakes they made in the previous round and taking advantage of the suboptimal site choice.
Again, a lot of the same problems that we saw the week previous from Lycus. And it's kind of a situation where, sure, I understand that, which is a relatively even for any team, especially for a team like Lycus that is still rebuilding their entire roster in Q1 Rainbow Six Siege team. But we're not seeing any improvement so far. That basement was good. It was put into a situation where it was way too close than it really should have been. And then you lost Cash and CC very decisively, which is expected. You saw it last week. You don't really need to watch and know how Clubhouse played because you know exactly how you lost it last week. And, you know, if it's kind of a situation where Lycus at this point in time have a very small map pool and Clubhouse next to Chalet is their best choice, sure, I understand. But it really does look like that they not only don't necessarily know how to play Clubhouse against aggressive teams that are very good at problem solving like FloatTech, but they're just not changing their defensive setups really at all.
And with the adaptability that we've seen from FloatTech so far, that is certainly going to be a problem. I like the pick of Grim here that we're seeing from Dami, is that's going to give a lot of opportunity to gain information on these roamers, even if Dami isn't able to hunt them down himself. Just having that concrete information on where they are can allow him to direct his teammates a little bit as they try to go for their own picks, and that pistol DMR makes a hell of a secondary for vertical play as well. I like this angle that Vipoa is holding additionally, as he has the cutoff here, which unfortunately not able to capitalize on, but it does still apply pressure to these players inside of Cash. But that shield existing on top of Red is stalling so much time.
Dami is able to find the very first pick on Cadent yet again, and this complete extension of CC and Cash has just been given away with relatively around a minute 10. That is what you should expect. On top of that, just look at how much drone utility that FloatTech has set up this early on in the round. We're not even at the 130 mark yet. They already have completely pushed out this player inside of bar. And now it's a situation where they can work these windows, they can work the hashes, they're getting rid of that Mira, and they're just giving themselves so many different opportunities and a plethora of time to work with.
Yes, but something that's been very good to watch from FloatTech here is now they're looking to apply more pressure by utility onto these defenders. As we see Jay look to see if he could alleviate a little bit of it and push forward, but FloatTech know what space they have, they know what space they need, and Hectic takes advantage, kills off Jay, but Cuervo gets a refrag. as now we're getting down to crunch time, and the attack, they're doing very well for themselves in the kill department. Zonky whittles it down to a 1 versus 3 that Cuervo has to fight his way out of. Currently sitting outside of logistics, and Rai is able to get that final pick, as it looks like, yet again, once FloatTech have realized how this defensive half is going to go, they're able to read Lycus perfectly.
Again, it really goes back. And to be fair, last time that we saw this exact same scoreline in this fashion for FloatTech, Lycus started to work their way back, taking that 3-3. And his defense, that is more than expected. But not only from what we saw last week, but now in translation, what we're seeing on Clubhouse now, it's kind of a situation where, as in the seat I'm sitting in, and as of what I'm seeing in front of me, it really looks like Lycus can really only play this bottom bomb site, this basement bomb site. I don't like saying that a whole lot, because it's kind of, you know, just an easy way out. But there just is a lot of times where teams, especially on Clubhouse, can really only play this bottom basement, where they could just have that easy extension and that easy fallback, and then just rely on that flood on the bomb site, rather than a site like Hash and Gym, where you have to worry about that external factors, the walls right on the forefronts of the site, and the windows you don't have to worry about. And it allows Lycus to play a very safe playstyle, that being a bunker playstyle, and that's exactly what we've seen them had so much success throughout this entire series.
They're going to go for an aggressive spawn peek, but this time Lycus are ready, or FloatTech rather, are ready for that early pressure. They don't just fold as soon as a player sticks their head outside of the building. Now we're going to see a much less vertical heavy take come out from FloatTech here, as they really only have the breach charges from Dami to work vertical play this round. The IQ has made her way in towards strip side and is now just working on getting rid of these default cameras, as well as taking that space, as it looks like they've just tried to figure out kind of where Lycus aren't holding on the map, and then they're just applying pressure to those areas, and they're trying to just cut off the extremities of the map from Lycus, and then they'll start to take more and more ground and hopefully look to squeeze out this defense like a boa constrictor killing its meal.
They've now also put themselves in a position where all 5 defenders are residing on the bench. There hasn't been a full relation to FloatTech at this or has been cleared out. It looks like it has now. And this gives a situation that we didn't see previously, where we still did see that pressure from below, those players trying to creep up those stairs, and did eventually have success. And now this allows FloatTech, for the very first time on this bomb site, to just completely work these hatches, use that utility to flood out these players. On top of that, you have Hectic playing a very resided position, just trying to cut off a potential push. In FloatTech, they're putting themselves and preparing themselves for every single possibility in this round, which I absolutely love seeing.
Yeah, they have a lot of opportunity to just create and maintain pressure on these defenders. And sooner or later, someone's going to have to fight someone else, and the first attempt is going to come from Cadence, who does win the argument, but doesn't end up killing anyone in the end. As now, this drone info that Dami is finding, it's going to inform how his teammates look to get into the site, as they know where these defenders are now. Hectic is going to look to walk in over from Oil Pit and see what fights he can find, as the rest of his team go in as well. But so far, the attack, they've won almost every gunfight. All left up to Cadent and Sahi, neither of which are inside of the bomb site. Take that, all left up to Cadence. He's completely disconnected from this diffuser. He manages to down one, but Hectic, he doesn't even need to do anything. Vipoa has that gunfight from Moto.
And now we're getting a pause from Lycus. It could perhaps be a tech pause, maybe kind of a situation where they just need to fix a little bit of a PC problem. Hopefully, it is not a situation where we need a 10-minute rehost, but nonetheless, they get a chance to just stop the momentum. Whether or not they talk to themselves, I'm not exactly sure how bad these Blitz admins really care about players talking to themselves. Probably isn't that strict, more lenient. But it's kind of a situation where whether or not Lycus win these next 2 rounds, FloatTech have a 3-3 attacking half on Clubhouse. That is all they need. Unless they have a completely flawed defensive half on Clubhouse, which is probably not going to happen. Whether or not Lycus win these next 2 rounds, they're going to be in a bad situation. God forbid they lose, 1-2. It's kind of a situation where, in my opinion, going forward, this really does look like a map that they probably should keep out of the map pool. But at the same point, I don't know if they really can do that.
I mean, it is not being able to play a fundamental base map like Clubhouse is certainly far from ideal. I think I did just hear from a producer that we're gonna go on another break, so yeah,
Jinxed us.
it's been what this night has been all about. So once again, we're gonna throw things over to that lovely break screen and just get stuff working behind the scenes, but don't go too far.
And I've been chilling, watching the ocean with you. Baby up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us. And we just chilling, kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the monsoon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Cause you got me holding. And I'll be running, possessed by a low, low voodoo. Fired up like a wolf on a full moon. And we're stuck in a la la land. The tides will turn without us. And I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Cause you got me holding. Play me like a bass guitar. Simmer down and mess me up. Tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. Drumming round in your red Ford. Shivers down my spinal cord. Oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about me and you? Can we talk about the truth? I wanna know, I wanna know. Can we talk about me and you? Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Where you look, where you touch, where you feel, yeah. Where you look, where you touch.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, the tech pauses are over. We've had quite a few so far, which have been almost as dangerous to us behind the scenes as FloatTech have been to Lycus. Empire so far on this map is Lycus won that first round, although they almost didn't, and since then they just haven't been able to find their footing at all.
I think that's the best way to put it, honestly. We saw the very first round.
10 seconds left before insertion.
It wasn't close. It was a round won by Lycus. The first half of that first round was so definitive. But these last 3 rounds, we've just seen FloatTech completely dismantle and shut down this defense from Lycus with no answer, no solution for just simply isolating these players. They've done a great job of just identifying it. And for now, the answer was last round, a run out in this exact same position by a different player, but Afix not going to be getting that aggressive, rather just going to be trying to sit in this position, try potentially catch a player off guard. Doesn't look like he'll get much as a match.
He's in a pretty precarious position here. They know exactly where he is, and he is not retreating. the Monty, you'll look him dead in the eyes, being locked off from multiple angles, and it just doesn't end up working out. Hectic has that cut off, way overstays his welcome, and now after the way these past 3 rounds have gone, you don't want to give Lycus that opening pick. That is so much freedom that they've just been granted that they can just work with now. We do have Cadence up on a floor above who could potentially play spoiler with the Boss G, but they're going to know exactly where he is now, or just about where he is, and FloatTech haven't really been letting flanks just happen.
Yeah, and on top of that, you do also have Jay upstairs. But if you look at FloatTech, again, masterfully just understanding the position of these roamers in Lycus as a whole, and they're not going to be playing into it. They realize that there is a still heavy roam on the top floor. It may not be where there's 2 players. They do find Saya on the bomb site. And now with those 2 players upstairs, only 1 player on the bomb site, it's completely vacant and ready.
Do see the man count become even here, although not exactly, as there is a player on the floor. But so far, things are in an advantage for the defense, but not anymore, as Zonky has gotten to pick on to Cadence. But Jay, he's refragged that pick, and everything is left up to Rai on this Monty. Looks like he might potentially want to get Cuervo up off the ground, but a good opportunity to do so will not present itself, as Rai now has 35 seconds to orchestrate whatever plan he wants to win this round. Is going to go for trying to get that defuse kit down, and Jay, he's so far away here that he's not going to get back in time. And now all Rai has to do is stand tall like the mountain that Monty is named after and just prevent Jay from getting on this defuse. And he's just gonna duck around, but no! Just 1 bullet from Jay connects with his leg, and that's enough to win this round, as Lycus Empire finally get one back on the board and stop the momentum.
I love how that wasn't even purposeful. It was just, oh, Monty has his shield down and just panics and accidentally downs him. It's amazing. I love how this entire game has just essentially just been a comedic stand-up gig. It really has. There's just so many situations, whether it's intentional or not, where it's just hilarious. In my opinion, this is a round that should not have lost. We talked about how they had such a great
Defenders
idea
disabled the
of
diffuser.
these defenders, but I also said that they simply just had an idea. They didn't have an exact ping on those last 2 players. They simply just knew there may be a player or 2 upstairs. And because of that, they were not prepared for that flank from the Legion. And this is also, coming off of a, 10 to 15 minute timeout. It's kind of a situation where FloatTech, that momentum was stolen away. They had absolutely nothing, going up that, or going down the hill, going up the hill rather now. They just simply were not prepared. And also, in theory, this should be a round where FloatTech are able to just fix those problems. But on the contrary, Lycus is very solid and trying to get at least an even half on the defensive side of Clubhouse of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's been an interesting game. That's I think how we'll put that. Another gym and master bedroom defense is what we're going to see out of Lycus Empire here, is yet again FloatTech want to get this wall open very early on, and probably send a player inside a garage as well. It's going to be Vapoa, much like the last time. And there was a shield here that ended up stalling a lot of time from FloatTech the previous time they went for this attack. So we'll see how things go here. I'm interested to see if this flank from Cadent ends up bearing any fruit, as could potentially get Vipoa if he's able to get inside of that, into that kind of position, but no, they don't know where he is, and he actually does get a pick onto Rai. That's the Maverick taken off the board, and he's just gonna get the hell out now.
That's exactly what you need to do as Caden. Not only have you gone that, also you wasted so much time and fallen back. If you look at the overall positions and how FloatTech is playing, they understand that this player has fallen back, and they're not going to be allowing him to apply that phantom pressure. Now, Caden is in a very precarious situation here because he does have that capability to get that flank, get that backs up, especially with Zonk in such an isolated position. But also, if he plays too scared and if he doesn't play his situation right whatsoever, he gives FloatTech essentially this 4v4 on the bomb site.
Another C4 goes out. Jay gets a kill off of it, but Vipoa has that refrag as the attack is inching ever closer towards that site, but they have a few picks they need, which Sahi does not make easy. Vipoa is going to get one and a second as well. Or actually, that's going to be hectic, as now they've whittled down the man count to an even 2 versus 2. They have control of this diffuser as well, as now they need to spend these next 40 seconds locating these defenders and getting the space they need to get this bomb down. Task that's certainly easier said than done, but that C4 being wasted does put relieve a lot of pressure from the attack. But Sahi gonna add some more with the pick along with Cadence, as now it's all left up to Hectic. 1 versus 2, 20 seconds left. Diffuser not in his hands, as now he just has to try to take these gunfights, but he doesn't even get the first one, as Cuervo has that positioning.
Lycus finally able to breathe a little bit of life, not only into that half, but this entire series. And again, just like I said on Chalet when they had that 5-3 lead, they're not out of the woods yet. They now have to attack on the clubhouse. After that first half that we saw,
Attackers drop the bomb.
Favorable position.
Changing max!
Situation that I do not envy whatsoever. Again, it's kind of a story of it's a little bit better than last year. Not a whole lot better. If they were a whole lot better, they would have won Chalet. They would have shut it out when they were up around 5-3. But we're starting to see this team, this roster that's essentially been thrown together, start to grow, start to understand the mistakes and find the problems. But again, for the team that just is so solid, like FloatTech, that has that core that's been together for so long, there's sure there will be plenty of problems. But because they have that consistent core that is, very structured, they're gonna have the ability to solve the problems, whether it be a round or if it does take a couple rounds after the mistake is made.
Sides are switching. We'll see how this manifests now. This is the second 3-3 half that we've seen, or 3-3 split that we've seen after the first half so far this series. So we'll see if things manifest themselves differently than they did on the previous map. As a lot of information gathering being done early on by Lycus Empire, but FloatTech are going to look to mitigate that as much as possible, especially with how they struggled with the information game on the previous map. They want to try and make that happen again and maximize it, if at all possible as well. But so far, a lot of these FloatTech players are playing this site pretty close to the chest, which is very common for this bomb site, especially with just how many good positions there are to play that enable you in that late round.
You already see that Lycus are playing relatively very free. They're not really in a situation where they're getting in their heads. They're not really feeling any of this phantom pressure from not identifying where these roamers are. And it's kind of a situation where this is exactly what I'd love to see from Lycus, especially after having a non-favorable defensive half. That they need to continue to go strong. They don't want to let off the gas. They want to make sure that they can get as much map control as they can, and really not let FloatTech get into their head.
Setting charge!
Some vertical play being done, some utility being destroyed as well, as Lycus Empire now trying to work the site directly and see if they can get it more favorable to the way they want to attack it. But this Valcam from Bifoa has gone completely on the scene, and that's going to feed a ton of information over towards FloatTech, which they can use to try and dismantle this defense. We also have a player inside of dirt as well, which is a very good position and very difficult to get out of. As now, Lycus are kind of at the point where they need to start getting in and getting that bomb down, but the flames from Cuervo himself fell him. Zonky gets one as well. Everything is falling apart so far for Lycus as another drops, felled by Zonky. Dami gets his own as well, and it all falls apart at the finish line as Lycus Empire become completely discombobulated, and FloatTech thrive in that chaos.
I think the perfect way you can really sum up this entire series so far is there's really only so much you can do. Lycus Empire as a team coming in, whether it be in the intel game, the overall capability of fragging, or simply having that cohesion and structure, FloatTech beat them out at every single point. And again, especially without that coach, those 4 new players, there's kind of a situation where if you're Lycus, you can really just go into these games and come out with just learning. Whether you win or lose, you kind of got to go in with the assumption of just not having those high standards. And obviously, for a T1 team, that's not exactly what you want to hear, especially if you're not very familiar with the scene. But just with everything in the context for Lycus, there's really only so much they really are capable of. The fact that they got that 75 based off of last week, they're able to either close out Clubhouse or make it relatively close and give FloatTech a very difficult time. We didn't see that in the first round of their defense, but if they do start to trick them up, it is relatively above what they should be expected to do.
Yeah, I mean, game day experience is just always good as well. So it's oftentimes kind of a thing where people will just have trouble translating their scrim performances to game day. So even if you lose, just kind of getting those jitters out in a situation where the stakes are relatively low compared to, you know, Pro League and Blitz, you know, a little bit of difference, but, you know, no one will ever notice. So you have Dami kind of lurking around that bottom floor, eventually looking to get some sort of flank off, or maybe walk up secret stairs and get a nitro kill on a player inside of CCTV. Looks like Cadence thought he had a breaching charge, which became a claymore mysteriously, so a little bit unfortunate there, but he's still able to get things open, still able to start working to get these defenders out of cash. But they do have a lot more utility inside of cash to defend themselves than Lycus were giving themselves. Plus, this C4 from Dami, if he's able to get it, could be very deadly.
Ooh. Somehow, in some way, Kid was able to work that black magic and find a pick onto Vipoa. They do lose Jay, though. Losing that sledge is going to do so much. They're now not really going to be able to get that hatch unless they do sacrifice some of those Habana pellets. It's already open, doesn't even matter. But nonetheless, a 4v4 even mankind with a minute on the clock, you still do have that Monty on the board. So it is still relatively a very even playground, especially with initiation completely vacated, essentially, from FloatTech.
We have the Habana on highway as well, who's going to be working to cut off a lot of these angles that FloatTech are going to want to play. Cadence is going to cut down Hectic while trying to make his way into construction. And that Monty is going to grow more powerful as this man deficit grows in the favor of Lycus Empire. Dami is having a lot of pressure being exerted, but his teammates are going to relieve quite a bit of it. And now Monty's put in a situation where he can almost be a detriment, as you are a man down here going into these last fights. They know exactly where he is. He's completely disconnected from his teammates. But Cuervo manages to get one onto Zonky before he ends up being killed off. Cadence has made his way all the way inside of Jim's bedroom, but he's lost control of the diffuser, as that was with his teammate. He has to try to go for these gunfights, see if anyone will expose themselves, but no one does. They both play their angles perfectly with that time. And FloatTech continue their defensive win streak, and if they win this next round, could go for a flawless quarter.
You know, I'm trying to find the right words to just really describe the problems on Lycus, because it really does boil down to just simply, as I've spoken about round after round, the lack of structure. So much closer than it did last week is simply off of the backs of the individual capability of the fragging powers on Lycus Empire. We did see a little bit of a glimpse on it last week, but they weren't able to really replicate. Now, you know, whether it be FloatTech having a drone clearing the way or these attackers, we're starting to see this, you know, entry and fragging potential really come forward for Lycus, and that is usually one of the first steps to a team really forming and understanding how they do play, is just simply getting those entry players on the attack to find success. It is one of the hardest and first problems that restructuring or just structuring for the very first time has to deal with, and that's what we're seeing in this matchup, is we're starting to see those entry players finally find that success, and a very questionable Mira play from Vipoa and Raptors.
I want to see where this goes. I don't know what you're talking about.
They reinforced both balls and Raptors and put a mirror on the left one. So. They're still gonna have the Raptor head holes. They're gonna open up that mirror window, but it also just means that, like, you can't, like, easily, like, just shoot through a wall and kill the guy in Raptors, so he has a little bit more cover. So it's not something that's as common as, like, just opening up head holes, but it is something that we've kind of start to see gain some popularity. I believe some of the teams in Manchester started doing it, but don't quote me on that. That major was a little bit ago, and I basically only watched Beast Coast. But we do see Lycus Empire kind of making some good progress on the extremities of the site, getting their walls open, applying their pressure, and overall just figuring out where these defenders are. But now they're going to have to kind of transition into working the site itself, which Vipoa does make easy so far, as he is killed off by Aphex, and that's one of those Raptor players taken out easily. And with there being pressure on both sides of the site, not having that body up could really, really work against them. You also talked about, you know, that being open
What?
or closed, but Doff just throws and finds the kill. I'm just completely lost, but simple fact is, Lycus do not have control of Raptors just yet.
And as you say that, everyone on Raptors dies. Now the issue, right, so they did exactly kind of what I predicted they were going to do with that, but the issue is also that it just kind of puts those players inside of a box, and they can't really have a ton of impact on the rest of the site itself. And if they tried to push directly into Raptors, it would have been a really good play, but they push towards the other side of the site and completely dismantle it. So then, instead of cutting off the Raptors take from the rest of the site, you just end up cutting off the Raptors players from helping their teammates at all.
Yeah, and now we see FloatTech, you know, playing that CC bomb site. Whether or not they lost it, they played basement, they played gym. It's kind of a situation where you either have CC or you have bar. Bar's not even a bomb site anymore. No one plays it or even entertains the idea unless you're trolling or you're facing a grand final that you still somehow lose to Spoit. Nonetheless, it's kind of a situation where it's just kind of, you know, the better of two evils, and that was an opportunity for Lycus to win, and they did take advantage. And again, that was an advantage that we didn't see them capitalize on last week. We're just seeing, even if it is small and micro improvements, we're still seeing this team grow. And even though there are a lot of situations, a lot of rounds where it's just very difficult to watch as, you know, just a viewer and a caster, is also just really good and honestly really interesting to see this team grow.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about this game, just with the things I was told going into it, but so far, Lycus have definitely surpassed those expectations, and I mean, like we've kind of said a lot, when you have new players on a roster, it's just very difficult to kind of get everyone on the same page and get everyone firing on all cylinders. So progress that Lycus are making is still good progress, even if it is maybe slower than they would like. And hey, FloatTech, not a team that's going to give anyone an easy time here. I mean, they won the first map, for Christ's sake. Now, though, a minute has elapsed, and we've seen a lot of entry points, various entry points being taken up by Lycus. They have some good control so far, and now, once again, they have to kind of transition more into working the map itself.
We can already see, again, just Lycus just playing so free throughout all points of the map. Whether or not it punishes them, eventually this aggression, especially on a player like Kaden, is just going to find success. He's going to be a player on FloatTech that will eventually overextend. It could perhaps be this Mozzie. And now with those shots, he's not going to be able to just drop down. Still does somehow find a way. But all this will really do is just waste time. But Kaden, again, with his position, is able to just shut down this cross.
Does manage to completely get back to the site, however, but he does distract Cadence for a little bit. Looks like we're going to see another kitchen drop coming out here, with it being a Monty this time, however. He is inside of a smoke canister while also having a lesion mine in his foot. His life is being made so hard. Rai ends it as well. Zonky tags on for another. Things they have gotten even, however. Defense is maintaining this advantage wherever they can. As now Asahi has to dance around his own vertical holes inside of kitchen. As now the defense, they're just holding tight. The 20 seconds left, they have full control of the diffuser. The attack has everything to do and no time to do it with. 15 seconds left. Dami doesn't even need all of it, as map and match points are secured by FloatTech.
Honestly, playing exactly how I thought. Lycus Empire now, still in, honestly, in my opinion, a very realistic situation to put this into overtime. The two next bomb sites that we will see will be bedroom and gym. If they lose that, they may try it again. There could perhaps be a potential that we do see them go to CC, but how it played last time, very doubtful. So these next two rounds, if they're so need be, will be on this gym master bedroom bomb site, which gives Lycus Empire the opportunity. They've seen this bomb site before, this week and last week, never mind. They've had time to not only solve their problems out of the server, but on this map, in this server specifically. And in my opinion, this is their best chance that I've seen them throughout this entire first two play days, that they can bring it to overtime, potentially even win a map. And keep in mind, even if they win Clubhouse and go on to lose Nighthaven, they still gain a point in a very tested and heated division.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
Certainly ideal for them when you look at it that way. So if they're able to do so, however, is we still do have potentially 2 rounds that Lycus can win to bring us to an overtime, which is going to be the fight they're going on now. As we've gone back to gym and bedroom, with yet another CC extension being taken with a CC take. Ace could open up those walls immediately, along with Thermite doing some work of his own. As it looks like they want to try to trap these players inside CC, but so far that isn't really happening. As we also see these attackers kind of prodding over at the other side of the map, just seeing if they're able to get these things open. As Lycus have been pretty good about working the extremities of the map early on and not faltering to any sort of pressure, but Rai almost falters a little bit, almost gets killed off by Afix, but doesn't quite see C4 thrown out in return, but yet again, doesn't net any sort of advantage.
And another opening pick for Kaden. If you can see the position of Hectic in a position to lose his life, as Kaden now gets a second. And everything now falling into the favor of Lycus Empire.
Everything is in a 5 versus 1 now. Vipoa, all that's left so far. 6 HP sitting inside of logistics, and there's so much time the attack has to
Attackers
work with.
activating diffuser.
He gets that first pick onto Jay, but it's likely more than a consolation prize. Oh, beautiful shot into Cuervo, but it might not be enough. He still has 3 more to find and only 6 HP to do it with. Trying to take any fight he can, and he's whittled it down to a 2 versus 1. He could potentially take this. Both of these attackers are on such low HP too. If he could just find where they are, he's gonna go for the next fight. Try to get any information he can.
Eyes on the diffuser.
One of these players is on the roof. One resides down below. He's gonna start going for that defuse, but no one's in a good position. But Sahi jumps in the window, and a beautiful clutch attempt does eventually come to an end. But yet again, we see Lycus throwing these numbers in these post-plant situations.
Lycus Empire winning that first. Going back to bedroom and gym. FloatTech playing into the old age idea of just playing the best win percentage you have in front of you. You have bedroom and gym, CCTV.
Breaching sequence activated.
Around where they just there were so many gaps in defense, and FloatTech never really tried to attempt to fix them, to try and fill those holes in the defense, and allowed for potential and opportunity after opportunity for Lycus Empire to find success, and that's exactly what they did by Poa bringing out this castle to potentially not only deny these window plays from Lycus Empire, but also just waste a little bit of time. And this castle isn't going to be the do-all solution for FloatTech, as we saw in the previous round. The reason that they gave so many picks away was because just the unknowing of the positions of those external Lycus players overextending in their defensive positions. Hectic over by top red where he's playing right now, and they can just conceal their position just a little bit longer. They will just honestly stall out Lycus.
I think Lycus has also gotten a lot better at just not letting people fall through their fingers. And we're seeing that last round. Every contingency plan they could think of, they have going for them. Now I see a lot of wall denial being brought out by FloatTech, which is going to delay things a little bit, as there are only so many places that Thatcher can be all at once. As he's going to have to work one of those things at a time. They are still making steady progress on this CC side take, but now they also have to start working the other parts of the map, and there just being so many things that are electrified mean that Lycus have to be choosy with what they open up. And it looks like that construction wall is going to remain safe, at least for now. And that's a lot of pressure that's being alleviated from the defense, especially with Hectic getting that opener onto Aphex.
That's just a thing that they got last round that they're not going to really be able to get this time around. They do lose that Thatcher. They're able to get this CC wall open. They're going to completely vacate this position, not try and push an additional pressure, but instead Jay, oh my god, Vipoa just shits on him. I apologize. But now, this is a situation that FloatTech has just told Lycus, you have to clear this. You can't ignore this position. You're going to have to apply pressure. You're going to have to force this issue. And again, Vipoa is just running away with an absolute robbery.
Gets a third as well. Hectic is going to fall to Cuervo, but it might just be consolation at this point. As Vipoa still in this position where he's been so deadly so far, now sitting behind that shield on top red, gets himself a 4K, gets Goose's payment docked, and gets his team the win as they take this series 2-0.
And a very close 2-0. In my opinion, the closest 2-0 we've had throughout this entire group stage. And I'm very happy to say that. 7-5 on Chalet, followed up by yet another 7-5 on Club. A map that was 7-0, 7-2. I don't remember the exact scoreline. But going into this matchup, I understood that Lycus, a very new team, reconstructing. And the match I saw last week, in obviously a brand new team, being a little bit harsher, was just kind of a situation where it should not have gone that way. There was a lot of plays where it was honestly just baffling. The fact that Lycus and completely turned things, they were not able to get
Attackers have dropped the bomb.
Changing max.
Attackers dropped the diffuser. Attackers dropped the diffuser.
are being fixed relatively
It is really impressive to see, and honestly, really good thing to see as well. I mean, especially even where we know Lycus is going to be going pretty soon here, or actually, I think he said in a while. So it's good to get the jitters out now. And if they could do all that in a week, then imagine what they could do in however long we determined that period of time is. So glad to see that they are doing much better, and it's also just like an org that I know I missed having Lycus around. They've just kind of been there since the dawn of time, and I mean we all miss them, right? And just you like seeing orgs like that come back and then being able to kind of root for the teams and see that progress come back. And they also really did test FloatTech as well, and since they're a team that's going to be vying for a spot in Element 4 when that comes up pretty soon, it's a lot of good practice for them as well. So overall, maybe not the game that Lycus would have wanted, but a productive game for both sides nonetheless.
Yeah, and they're just honestly really looking up. I do feel like Lycus will put up very valiant efforts going forward. I'm actually very excited to see how they play, especially going into E4, like you mentioned before. Again, FloatTech just continuing to be the definition of consistency.
Well, I mean, like you said, you would kind of expect that with how long that core has been together. But that being said, unless our producer yells at me, I believe that is it for Goose and I tonight. So thank you, everyone, for showing up, and thank you for bearing with us through all those tag pauses. Those happen sometimes, and a lot of times if I'm casting, apparently. But regardless, we made it through. We survived. So have a wonderful, wonderful night, and make sure to tune into the next streams.
Mama said you're meant to burn as bright as a star among the midnight sky. All the pressure blinded me, but now I see I'm no different from the rest. You said I'd fly away, but my walls have kept me down. Now I'm lost and I'm afraid, and I'm close to hit the ground. You said I'd fly away. You said I'd fly anyway, but I keep on falling. You said I'd fly anyway, but I keep on falling. But I keep on falling. We're all searching for that open door. Show